The top recruit in the nation that already plays here in Utah is staying in Utah. Adam, your thoughts?
Well, it is shall we say, historic day for BYU. I mean, AJ Dybantsa is the type of prospect who I don't think most people ever would have dreamed would have ended up at BYU until very recently, but this has been the expectation dating back to this summer. I mean, just to say it like it is, they really invested a significant amount of NIL in pursuit of him. But more than that, they also built a plan around new head coach Kevin Young and the system he has in place to convince AJ and his father that they were the spot to develop him for the NBA. They've branded this Provo, capital P, capital R, capital O, lowercase v, lowercase o. And it goes into the style of play, the nutrition, the strength and conditioning, as well as the sports. I think it's the mental part of the game as well. And they are putting those four tenets together, marketing them to the players across the country. And now they have the very best recruit in the entire country who will play for BYU next year. So really is a historic day for their program.
How much of this comes down to the dollar?
It's the starting point. You have to be able to hit a certain threshold to get into the door. But once you get to that threshold, then it becomes about some other things. So there's a price you have to be able to match. But they weren't the only school who was able to match that. And then it was about out recruiting the other schools who were in that territory. And that's where there's those four pillars come in and they've really done a good job in that area. And I should also say this, and I've made this point a couple times today, but I think it's important. Even the dollar in and of itself, that's part of the job now. If you're a high major head coach, you have to cultivate those relationships with businesses, with donors, with everybody who's in support of your program, and you have to have a CEO type approach to try and line up all those variables. And that's really what Kevin Young has been able to do in the 7 months since he's been named the head coach of that program. Because let's remember now, Mark Pope leaves BYU for Kentucky because he thinks Kentucky's a better job. I mean, that's why people leave one high major job for another. Kevin Young came in. This is a guy who's been mentioned for NBA head coaching jobs of the last couple of years. Clearly, this was the place he wanted to be, and he rallied other people around who were like-minded, and now they've made it a destination.
How much does AJ Dybantsa going to BYU change BYU and who else they can bring into the program?
Well, that too is a question I've been asked today. What I will tell you is that, there's dollars are not infinite and they just we don't know what any program's quote unquote salary cap is. We don't know how much they have to allocate to players. But BYU just allocated quite a bit. Now we're projecting. We don't know what there's been a lot of speculation about what the number is. Nobody knows for sure. I'm not going to pretend I know. But they've got a lot of resources allocated here. Clearly, AJ is the type of player who other people are going to want to play with. But just a month ago, they landed a commitment from Xavier Staten from Las Vegas, and he was at that point the highest rated domestic prospect, meaning from the United States, to ever commit to BYU. And if it weren't for Yegor Demin back in June, he would have been the highest ranked prospect ever to commit to BYU. So they already have two freshmen coming in who are AJ's a clear McDonald's All-American. The front runner be the first pick in the 2026 NBA draft. Xavion's a potential McDonald's All-American. I expect BYU will be very active in the transfer portal as well as in the international market again this spring.
Was there any surprise at all in today's announcement, or did you foresee this coming from a significant time, over the last couple of weeks at least?
I think the people that I work with over at 24/7 and CBS have been reporting since July that this was the leader. In fact, we've been kind of on lookout for this for the better part of the last month. AJ went home to Boston to play a game in Boston last month, and I was there. And I remember I said to his dad, they were having a press conference right afterwards, and I said to his dad, I said, "There's nothing happening, right?" And he said, "No, no, no, not tonight." So what I will say is I think that the expectation was if it happens sometime soon, it was definitely in BYU's favor. The longer it went, the more potential there were for others, whether it was to increase their offer or make it more competitive. But the sooner this ended, the better it was going to be for BYU.
Did anything with AJ already playing here in Utah have to factor into that?
I don't think that's completely unrelated. I think that there's, you know, certainly there was, I don't want to like, this isn't sourced or reported or anything like that, but I think certainly already being there and exploring the reality of the market as it is right now is these players and these families are making business decisions at a very young age. I think going to Utah Prep was a business decision. I think committing to BYU was, in at least some part, a business decision. I think that, is there some connection between those two? I'm sure there is to a certain extent. Exactly how much and exactly what it is, I'm not the person to tell you, and I wouldn't want to speculate, but I don't think they are totally isolated variables.
Getting down to the prep level, how competitive is Utah Prep and the Utah state of prep basketball in 2024?
Well, this is a high school season in which, it's really wide open. Last year, Montverde Academy with Cooper Flagg and Liam McNeely and Derek Queen and Asa Newell and Rob Wright. That was the best high school basketball team I've seen maybe ever. And so it was almost kind of a question as to whether anybody could give them a game. This year, I think there's a variety of teams who have the pieces to make a run. Montverde's very good. IMG's very good. There's lots of teams in that EYBL Scholastic who are capable of making a run. Utah Prep is capable of making a run. They have the best player in the country. They have one of the better point guards in the country in JJ Mandequit. It's going to be about the supporting cast and whether or not 3 through 8 they can keep up with the likes of Montverde and IMG. But I think for them, the goal is probably to make that whether it's Geico Nationals or Chipotle Nationals, whoever the sponsor is this year, is to make that season culminating event and then give themselves a chance to kind of play spoiler once they're there.
Plenty of people in Utah have no idea where Utah Prep is located other than the town. So I'm curious how much it's been on the map for you and your staff over the last couple of years.
I can't say I've ever been there. There's a terrific high school event in Utah just after Thanksgiving that I had a colleague at last week or 2 weeks ago. But the way the recruiting world works now, Brian, like we very rarely fly to these schools to see one game, but these schools and evaluators, whether it's people in the media like myself, college coaches, or now NBA scouts, they're usually meeting up at these big events. So I have seen Utah Prep play already multiple times this year. I saw them at the Border League in Las Vegas. I did go to Boston for that standalone game because it was AJ versus Nate Ament, another top 5 prospect in the class, and it was a 2-hour drive for me. But the vast majority of the time, it's not an individual game at the home campus. It's usually one of these showcase style events where it offers a little more bang for the buck, where you can see usually a full slate of games in a single day. That's typically the way the market works, so to speak, right now.
For people that don't know who AJ Dybantsa is and they're big, Cougar donors or lifelong BYU Cougar fans, what are they getting?
AJ Dybantsa is a jumbo wing. He's 6'9", which you typically associate with a forward or maybe even a center, but he moves and covers the court like a guard, like a wing. If you watched First Take this morning, you heard him say that he was a cross between Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and Tracy McGrady. His dad compared him to LeBron James. I'm not sure I'm willing to go that far. To me, he's a more athletic version of Brandon Miller at the same stage. But he's the best prospect in high school basketball. He's one of the best. You could make a case that he's the best prospect we've seen in the last 3 years.